Welcome back to the Behind the Well Show. I'm your host, Roger Abel. Molly informed us that this is our 70th episode, Elias.
I can't believe it. How did that even happen?
I can't believe they allow us to be on.
Who, YouTube or all the podcast platforms?
All of them.
Well, you're awesome, so that's probably why they keep letting us participate.
I appreciate that. You know, you've been really excited to do this show all day. You came to my office twice. Are you ready to go? Are you ready to go? And I was just trying to charge my computer, but you must have something you really want to talk about today.
No, there's nothing. I'm excited. I mean, I like the topics we have to talk about today, but I just wanted to get it done. And then I thought we were going to do it earlier than what actually happened. So I'm on this big kick of just getting stuff done when it's scheduled to be done. So maybe I'm charging too hard today. I don't know.
We were actually about 2 minutes early, so we're right on time.
Perfect.
Imagine this. Many Americans aren't optimistic about their financial situation this year. It's a CNBC article I read the other day. I want to know the last time most Americans were really optimistic about their financial future.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, just knowing kind of what I know and what we know about most people's money habits, probably the vast majority of Americans typically are not optimistic about their financial picture and situation. But you know, most people don't really understand money. They don't really understand investing. But then the 10 or 15% of people that do, I would imagine those people are still optimistic, probably always have been. But some of the things, we can talk about some of the things causing it. And I think inflation's a big one, right? Inflation's one of the number one reasons.
Well, I think people are feeling the crunch. I know when I go to the grocery store, it seems like it's a lot more expensive than it was a year ago. I try to eat fairly healthy, but you know, I can think of like 3 or 4 items that we buy for our family, and those 3 or 4 items are like $40. You know, by the time I go buy 4 or 5 pounds of apples, and I buy couple pounds of grapes, and then I go get my wife some hummus that's, you know, from a great place in Iowa City, but it's expensive. It's like $30 my grocery bill on 3 items that aren't really going to fill you up, but they're healthy items. I just think everything's gotten more expensive. And we can look here. Inflation, you know, was around 6.8% last year. It's as high as we've seen since 1982. That's the fastest pace of inflation. And one of the places people have seen this is at the gas pump. I don't know how many people you talk to, but I see the posts on Facebook. You know, it's $4 gas or $3.50 gas. And I guess it's up, but I think back to like, I owned a boat. Well, I do own a boat now, but I previously owned a boat. And I remember, I want to say maybe it was 07 or 08. We'd have to go back and check. It was before the financial crisis. I was paying like $4.50 a gallon for gas. So even though gas is maybe more expensive than a year ago, I still feel like I just don't feel like it's that expensive. But I guess if you're looking year over year from an inflation standpoint, energy's up 33%. The one thing I read, and it's not in this article, I read it in a different one this morning, but if you're heating your house with natural gas, it's going to be 43% more expensive this year versus if you're using electric, it's only gone up like 6%.
Yeah, actually, we got a letter from because we're tied into the natural gas, so we have a natural gas furnace and then a natural gas heater in the garage. We actually got a letter in the fall, kind of like a warning from the gas company to expect higher prices.
Who are you through?
Is Mid-American the gas company?
That sounds right.
In town?
Yeah, and I have the same thing, and I've been cranking my heater in my garage, so I don't know what that bill's going to be, but
yeah,
I've kept it about 70 out there all winter.
Yeah, and in it doesn't make sense to me. There's so much natural gas, especially here in America, so I don't know. I guess I don't know how the price needs to go up so much. There's plenty of supply of it, but I don't know if it's the access to it or potentially pipelines that have been shut down or something, but that's one thing. We have so much. I don't see why the price is going up, but we got a letter that it's probably going to go up, and
at least they warned you.
It is.
Warned you versus, hey, here's a bill that you just absolutely didn't expect, and That's probably one of the hardest things for people is most people are on a fixed income or are doing a budget each month. And if you're running a budget and all of a sudden your heating bill goes from, I don't know, whatever, $150 to $230, that can start to throw a wrench in, especially if it's, okay, your heating bill was $150, now it's $230. Your groceries used to be $150 a week, now they're $200. Your gas fill up used to be $50, now it's $65. All those things just start to add up. And one of the things I found or saw in this article that I thought was interesting is I actually broke down the survey by those who thought their financial situation would worsen in 2022. And the people that thought it would worsen, 79% of them were baby boomers, 73 Gen Xers, 53% millennials. And I started to just think, why would it be that baby boomers who, aren't working, arguably have done a fairly good job of saving, why would they think their financial situation would worsen? And two things came to mind right away. This generation still has pensions that they probably received from an employer and Social Security. Those are probably their two biggest paychecks for most people in their retirement. Well, most of those pensions, they don't have a cost of living adjustment. So yeah, if inflation goes up 7%, and let's say your pension was $2,000, inflation goes up 7%, your pension's still $2,000, it eroded your spending power by 7%. And same thing with Social Security. Great. Social Security gave you a raise. If you go look at the Social Security benefit somebody gets, that raise is typically enough to maybe offset their Medicare Part B premium. It's not like they're getting this great quality of life increase on the raise on Social Security.
And what was it, like 5% last year?
I want to say it's 5.8 or 6 something. I don't remember
Still
exactly. It was
the other way, less than inflation has been.
Yeah, it's meant to be tied to inflation. But then millennials, 53%. Well, maybe the reason they don't feel like they're going to be quite as worse off as baby boomers is they have the ability to, one, earn a wage if they're not retired. Two, maybe they have assets like a home that they've seen this appreciation in value. And if they're looking at their net worth, if they're worried about building wealth, they're looking at their net worth saying, well, yeah, inflation went up 7% or my home went up 7%, but I'm locked into this 3% mortgage rate. And they see that as a positive. So I just kind of broke those numbers down and wonder if the reason the boomers and the Gen Xers, the people that are close to retirement or in retirement feel that way is because they're not getting cost of living adjustments. But the other one could be there's very, very little interest to be earned on fixed income investments, which if you're a retiree, you're trying to find a way to generate income from what you have. And the safest way is through fixed income. The problem is they don't pay anything. So inflation goes up 6% and you bought that CD down the street at the the CD down the street at the credit union for 0.95% for 5 years, and inflation's 6%. I mean, she's never going to make it up. And people see that as safe. And we talk about it a lot. A CD doesn't mean safe. It means protection of principal, but it doesn't protect you against the erosion of your future purchasing power. So I just thought those were kind of interesting things to pick off in there.
Yeah, so I wanted to add a couple thoughts about, and this is more from probably a Gen X or millennial perspective. And so inflation, okay, so we've been talking about the bad things about inflation. Most of the stuff you read about is all about the bad things of inflation. So just a couple of things. One, we always have inflation. It's not going anywhere. It's always going to be around. Is it always going to be this high? Probably not. But the prices of things will always inflate. So I wanted to bring up some, I guess, things that I think are positive about inflation. If wages are going up, and I guess one, good about inflation, but then how they can help an individual person, how it can help. So if we're coming out of a time where wages are increasing, so if your wage is inflating, and let's say like right now in the last 2 years you refinanced your 30-year mortgage, so you have an interest rate around 3%, and your wages are going up because just inflation is going up, period, and we know that there's also wage inflation, your debt-to-income ratio is actually getting better. So if you refinance at a low interest rate and you continue to make more money, your debt-to-income ratio can start to look better on a monthly basis and, like you were saying, help your net worth. And the other thing is inflation does allow corporations and companies to charge higher prices, which would lead to them being more profitable and hopefully pay more wages too at the same time. So I don't want everyone to think that inflation like gets made to be this scary word, and it's not. All parts of inflation are bad, and it's just part. Inflation is just part of the economy. It's just part of how money works.
Here's one of the issues, and I literally talked to my mom about this yesterday. She's head of HR for a company here in town. And I said, because I knew we were doing this show, and I said, hey, I called her and she said, it's really stressful for me right now. I'm getting ready to do year-end bonuses and payroll increases, and just got me thinking as I knew we were doing this. I said, well, how much of a raise are your people getting? And she goes, 3%. 3% raise. And I said, well, that didn't even keep pace with inflation. She goes, I know, but that's what they budgeted. So just because we have inflation doesn't mean all people are going to get wage inflation. I mean, if you think about it, the employees where my mom works now, inflation went up 6.5%, 7%. They got a 3% raise. They missed out. They missed it by 3%. They really need another 3% just to stay even from a spending standpoint. Like they may not realize, depending upon their lifestyle, but it is. So that's the one thing about wage inflation. It's not happening for everybody, but in general, we've had wage inflation in the country. So a couple of things, though, if you're one of the people who are in this category that feel like potentially you're going to be worse off this year, there's a couple of things we can do. Number one is kind of go reassess, where you're spending your money, what you're spending it on. I always kind of joke every time, I have to go through my bank account or my bills. I always find a subscription or two that I've been paying for that I don't need. And I was listening yesterday to CNBC, and they were talking about how everybody's been cutting the cord from cable. Everybody's streaming. I mean, not everybody, but a vast majority of people are now streaming. And when you originally cut the cord, it was cheaper. You went out and you had one streaming service. You had Hulu or Apple TV or whatever it was.
Yeah, even 2 and 3 years ago, YouTube TV was way more affordable compared to cable than it is now.
So the study just came out that cord cutters are actually spending more on a monthly basis than they were pre-cable, because you've got your Hulu subscription. Mine's like $104 a month. That's almost what cable is. I've got a YouTube subscription because if I'm not at my house, I can't watch Hulu. I got Paramount Plus because I want to watch, 1883 and Yellowstone. I've got a Disney Plus subscription. I've got a Netflix. I mean, you start adding this up, I'm spending like $250 in streaming service, Showtime, HBO. And it's just one of those things that people aren't thinking about. What I should really do is just eliminate Hulu and just go to YouTube, but that would mean some pain. I'd have to reset up the DVR and everything. But if you're one of these people who are feeling like, hey, I'm getting behind, one of the easiest things to do is just find the subscriptions that you can cut. I mean, I had like a Bassmaster magazine subscription that I've been getting for like 20 years. I get the magazine like 8 issues a year. I've had it for 20 years. The last like 2 years, I've gotten it. I put it in my bag, and it's never left my bag. And the next thing you know, I have like 5 issues in there.
5 unread issues.
So guess what I did? It came up for renewal. I didn't renew it. And it's not a big amount of money, but all those little things start to add up. I was going through another example, I was going through my cabinet one day at home, cleaning out my toiletry cabinet. I had like 47 Dollar Shave Club cartridge packets. It was like 4 per packet because I switched over to an electric razor, but I still have my Dollar Shave Club membership going. But how often do you ever log into that? Never. It's $5 a month. I'm not thinking about it. I got in and shut it off. I did it a year and a half ago. I still have cartridges coming out of my ears. I have like a lifetime supply. But little things like that are some things that people can do if you feel like you're one of these people who are starting to fall behind, or you're going to be worse off this year. It's one of the really good ways to go through. Just tune up your budget a little bit. Don't forget to start paying yourself first. I created a freedom guide, I don't know, a year or two ago, and it's really a guide designed around really, really simple things you can do to help build wealth. So if anybody wants that, there's a link in the description here, or you can go to btwealthshow.com and you can download that guide completely free. Download the guide, and there's a couple of things, the ways in there that we believe we can help your financial picture, and the steps that I believe are the appropriate ways to get to some level of wealth. So Elias, as we're talking about budgets, probably the guy who believes in budgets more than anybody's Dave Ramsey. And there's an article, and you read it because you're looking at this, but I thought this was good because we actually get this question a lot.
Yeah, we do.
And it's an article, and it's really, is Warren Buffett or Dave Ramsey? Who's right about mortgages?
Do you want to know my opinion or just who's right in general? Because this is like an opinion-based question.
Well, I think let's go set the stage for the people at home who maybe don't know who each opinion is. So on one end of the spectrum, you have Dave Ramsey, who he urges people to take the smallest mortgage possible, typically 15 years, and pay it off in the quickest amount of time after they're saving their 15% for retirement. So, Dave Ramsey has a set of baby steps similar to the guide that we created, but a set of baby steps to get people to what he believes is financial freedom.
And one of his most popular quotes is, "I've never seen a foreclosed home that was paid for."
Well, yeah, and I'm not telling you one guy's right or wrong. I'm here to give you the opinions of both. But just because you have your house paid for, just because you're out of debt, doesn't mean that you actually built any wealth at all through life, right? I mean,
I agree with that 100%.
You could be 60 years old and be debt-free. If you don't have any money, it's not any good. So Dave Ramsey wants you to do a 15-year mortgage, 20% down, and then once you're saving 15% from retirement, throw all your extra money at this house. On the opposite side of the spectrum, you've got Warren Buffett, and if you don't know who Warren Buffett is, I can't believe you're listening to my show. But Warren Buffett believes that you should have a 30-year mortgage or take a 30-year mortgage. He calls it the best instrument in the world. Warren Buffett is worth billions. He personally took out a 30-year mortgage when he purchased his home, when he could have easily just financed it. Why did he do that?
Well, we don't need to speculate. There's a quote right here. "I thought I could probably do better with the money than have it be an all-equity purchase of the house."
And that
he probably has. I'm sure his house has not appreciated in value nearly as much as his net worth has.
Well, here, they have the number. He bought the house for $150,000 in 1971. He put $30,000 down, so he did 20% down, which makes sense because that 20% saves you the PMI, primary mortgage insurance, or it saves you from doing a second loan that's at a higher interest rate. Just 20% is a good, solid number.
And he's a responsible person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it says right here, if he would have, as a result, he ended up turning the $120,000 into a whopping $750 million because Berkshire's gone up in value. Now, most people are not going to experience that. But this is the question we get all the time. Well, should I pay my house off or should I put more into retirement? And here's my take on it. And I don't think it's black and white. I just don't think it's black and white. If you're like 50 or younger, I think you should be putting as much as you can into retirement. We had someone in last night. What was the age? Was he 34 last night when he came in here?
No, he was, I think, 36 or 37 years old.
Yeah, he's 37 years old.
Not even 40. So
yeah, 30. Let's just say 37. He's doing all the right things. They're maxing out Roth IRAs. They're doing all this stuff. They're on a great path to retirement. We've done a financial plan. And one of the things that's interesting is every time he comes in, he wants to see the results of the financial plan and how he's progressing and growing. Well, last night he goes, well, maybe we should slow down this and start paying down the house. And I'm like, well, why would you do that? He goes, well, I'd feel good about not having a mortgage. And I said, okay, I understand that. But here's the issue. You're missing out on the greatest wonder in the world, which is compound interest. I said, if you accelerate this mortgage and pay it off in 10 years versus investing these dollars, that's a negative. Like, you may not be better off, but for the most part, compounding on your dollars, you're never getting the time back. I can't guarantee you're going to be better off, but more times than not you are. And he was trying to accelerate payments on an actual rental property. So then it went down the line of, well, should I take all the money out of the rental property and invest it? And what was the answer? Probably not. Because we don't know. So it's kind of a fine line. Now, there's the other end of the spectrum, and I think about this a lot. I get the person that's in here that they're 4 years from retirement. They're 3 or 4 years from retirement, and they're 3 or 4 years from paying their house off. And if you give me the same question, my answer is not to put more into retirement. It's typically just pay it off. And why? Because if you've got a $1,500 mortgage payment, the amount of money you're going to put in over the next 4 years before you start taking distributions out of your 401k or your plan or whatever you're going to do is never going to provide the same cash flow that getting the $1,500 payment, getting it out of here, is ever going to provide. Because, I mean, how much would someone have to invest to get $18,000 a year guaranteed? They'd need to invest like $500,000 to generate enough cash flow to cover that payment. So I just wanted to get them to knock out the payment.
Yeah, and most people can't contribute at that rate. You can't contribute to get to $500,000 in 4 years.
Absolutely.
Most people cannot do that.
So, and then there's a third person who falls into this. And this is, I never forget, I had a meet with a client, and they're actually Dave Ramsey fans. And I'm not bagging on Dave Ramsey. He's helped a lot of people. He has good, solid advice. They're 72 years old. They're not in great health. They just refinanced this house to a 15-year mortgage when they were like 68 years old, I want to say. You know, they'd done okay saving. They didn't have a lot of money, but they'd done okay. And they could give me their budget down to the dollar. I mean, like they knew to the dollar how much the cable bill was. They were one of the best budgets I've ever seen. And she came in and she goes, Roger, I just can't get the numbers to work. Can't get the numbers to work. Like, I can't figure out how we can have any type of lifestyle in retirement.
And at this time, they had a 15-year mortgage.
Yep, just refinance, because Dave said we need to get it to 15 years.
Because that's what Dave Ramsey says.
That's what he recommended.
Right.
So they come in and they said, here's what we think our three options are. We could sell our house and buy a smaller one, or we could sell our place and rent somewhere. That's what they thought their options were. And I go,
refinance your house and rent your house. Was that your answer?
No, let me get to it. It was simple. I said, well, let me ask you a question. How much is it going to cost you to rent? And I don't remember, their payment was maybe like $1,200, something like that. They're like, like $800. Okay. So I get on and run the amortization on a 30-year mortgage versus a 15-year mortgage. And it was like $150 less a month for them to refinance their mortgage and keep their current house than it was to go rent. And what they were going to rent was like half the size, and it wasn't their house. They didn't love it. So I just said to them, I'm like, let me ask you a question. What's the purpose of getting your house paid for when you're 84 years old? Who's going to enjoy that? Well, nobody. Okay.
Whoever inherits the property.
Yeah, it's somebody else's benefit. I go, why wouldn't you just go refinance this thing out to a 30-year loan? It's going to save you up it's like $600 a month, whatever the numbers were. It's like $600 a month. And she's like, that would make everything really nice. I said, yeah. Instead of trying to pay your house off, you're basically renting your house from yourself. So if you don't have it paid off when you're 70, maybe you just refinance to a 30-year to get the cash flow. Because at some point you need some cash flow if you're not going to pay it off. So I don't think this is such an easy question as to, hey, this is the route you should go with your mortgage. It's case by case. Every single person needs to assess for themselves what's the right route, what makes the most sense for them. I mean, the only reason they would pay the house off is they really had this burning desire to give this house to their kids. I actually asked them, I said, are your kids going to sell this or keep it when you pass away? They said, oh, they'll sell it. I'm like, then what's the point? It's not like this has been in the family for 30 years and somebody wants to move in and keep it.
Right. So the question, I mean, you're right. There's a lot more to it than, who's right or wrong, Warren Buffett or Dave Ramsey. I guess the one thing I'll comment on is here's a difference between just taking generic advice from someone like Dave Ramsey, although it is good advice, but that's what it is. It's generic advice. He doesn't actually meet with people and help them with their own personal situation. I mean, he takes questions on his show from people about their own personal situation, but he doesn't actually he doesn't do a financial plan for people. He doesn't meet with them about their portfolio. He doesn't answer real questions that they have, like the question you're talking about.
His business only works because he gives sound general advice. He could never take the time to have customized solutions for every single person because every show would be different. He'd spend a whole show on one solution for somebody. So
right.
It's easier.
And he's marketing a message.
And we've watched the show in times where he has to stick with his message, but you can almost tell he wants to tell the person something different. Remember the show that the gal called up and it was we did a show about it. She had the student loan that was being paid for by the employer.
Yeah, right.
But he was almost paying to tell her to just pay it off early, and he told her to pay it off herself. She had all the money to do it, even though the employer was paying for it.
Yeah, one of the most confusing conversations I remember.
And it got blown up.
To.
It got blown up on YouTube. People are like, "This doesn't make any sense," but he has to stick to his very rigid process, and it works for him and it works for people. So, in no way are we trying to beat that up. One thing that Dave is adamantly against is credit cards, whether you're responsible with them or you're not responsible with a credit card. And as we know, most people's relationship with money is not very good, so most people can't handle the credit card. What I didn't know is that 40% of Americans that have a credit card don't know what their interest rate is. That's actually shocking that you don't know.
So this is that headline, that title is relatable. I could tell you in the ballpark what the rate is on my credit cards, but I actually don't know the actual rate, but I never carry a balance on them either. So it's never been relevant for me.
I know what the
to
rate
keep
is.
track
I don't
of
know
it.
my exact rate. I just know it's high.
Well, right. I know it's north of 15%.
So I thought about this.
So I guess I shouldn't say I don't know.
Here's why I
have an idea.
Here's why I think people don't know what the rate is. I'll bet you if you did this survey 15 years ago, everybody knew what their rate was. Go log into your bank or go log into Chase or wherever you have your credit card. When you log in, you go tell me if you can see where the interest rate is anywhere.
On your online login, you probably have to look at your statement to figure
or
that
maybe
out.
a little sidebar, but when you log in, all you see is balance,
credit
payment,
score, rewards.
payment due, and rewards. That's it.
Yeah.
They don't show that. So I'm like, well, yeah, nobody gets this. I don't get a credit card statement. It's just auto deduct. Like it's just automatic. Set it and forget it. So is this like the sneaky little world of credit cards that we're just not going to tell you what you're paying? You're going to have to actually go search and figure out what you're paying. Yep. I can't believe that the interest rate isn't in big bold letters. They had the reform like, I don't know how many years ago it was, 8, 9, 10 years ago, where they actually have to tell you in that little box on a statement, if you pay it off in 3 years, this is how much interest you'll make. If you make just the minimum payment, it's going to take you 17 years to pay this off. I can't believe in big bold letters on the online login, it doesn't say, hey, your current rate is 18.99%. In fact, the average credit card rate is 16.3%. How many people would think differently about using the credit card if they understood they're paying 16% interest?
I mean, yeah, you'd absolutely think differently about it.
Let's reverse it.
Do you remember, maybe you never had this, but in high school, like the business teacher would teach you about the $75 pizza, what a pizza would cost if you bought it on a credit card and then just paid the minimum until it was paid off?
No.
You guys didn't have that?
No.
That's what I always think about with credit card debt and the interest rates on them is the $75 or $85 pizza.
Here's what's crazy. You go to the checkout, I'm at Shields every time I go. Hey, sir, do you want a Shields credit card?
Yes, I do.
Get points. And those points would be valuable to me. I'm a preferred customer at Shields. No, I don't. People are signing up to pay 16% interest on their balance to get a $10 gift card. Could you imagine if I told somebody, hey, yep, I'm going to sell you the house. I'm going to give you a deal, 14.2%.
No.
Nobody buy a house.
Right.
Hey, this auto you want to buy, this car you want to buy, it's only going to be 14% interest. Nobody buy a car. But they'll go swipe that card at every single store in town and pay 16.3% because they think it's different. It's a small balance, right? Oh, yeah, it's, I have a $1,000 purchase, it's only $11 a month in interest. It boggles my mind how people think about this. But most people have no idea, which that doesn't surprise me. I wonder if they changed the question, Elias, and said, is your credit card interest rate under 10%, between 10 and 15, or over 15? How that breakout would be. Because like
probably
you said,
more accurate.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That would be it'd be shocking if, let's say, they did that and like 90% of the people said it's under 10%.
No, that wouldn't happen.
I don't know.
No. I mean,
it would tell you
people
whether
will at least know that.
It would. I don't know. It would tell you. Do they tell you what the interest rate is when you take the card at Shields?
I don't know, but I do know that.
I know they don't tell you what the interest rate is because you wouldn't do it.
I do know
they give you a little booklet.
I have a travel like Yeti coffee mug that says Shields on it for signing up for a Shields card before.
Oh, you got suckered in?
I love it. Yeah, that's when I drive to work, I'm drinking my coffee out of that Shields travel coffee mug that I got for getting their credit card.
You paid for it.
I've never carried a balance on it.
The 1 month you do by accident, you paid for it.
Probably won't happen, but yeah, you're right. I would.
So here's one thing, and I'm not big on this kind of strategy, but if you've got a credit card that you've got a $15,000 balance, you're paying 16%, it may be worthwhile for you to look at some type of a zero balance transfer, which they're going to charge you 3 or 4% to do that. But look at some zero balance transfer fee to try to knock that thing out and put yourself on a payment plan to get rid of it. Because otherwise, on 15 grand, you're clicking away at, $2,000 a year of interest.
Yeah. And our credit card interest, is that figured daily too?
I don't know. It's a great question.
I think it might be. So
I know if your balance is free for like 30 days from the purchase, like they don't start clicking it right away. So if you I pay my balance in full, so I don't pay any interest on that as long as I pay that.
Correct.
That
if you
amount
pay
by the due date.
But I'm talking about when you carry a balance. I think it is factored daily.
You probably look up. It's probably in the fine print. What I'd like everybody to do is not worry about that because you're not going to carry a balance.
Or just pay it off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Pay off the balance. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
With that said, kind of a good show, Elias. I had a good time today. Like we talked about earlier in the show, go to the website or click the link in the description. You can download our Freedom Guide. The website's btwellshow.com. With that said, appreciate everybody listening. Hope this is the great 70th episode.